Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Kimchica here with another Indiescovery, today featuring a game that I released a video on last week with first impression gameplay, a link in the description box below. The Missing is an indie game that had me hooked from the start, and so I ended up finishing it in just about a day. What did I think of it ultimately? Well, let's jump into it and find out. And while we're not going to be giving away major plot points, I am going to be showing some of the gameplay from this title, which does involve elements of harming our protagonist. So if you are sensitive to that, please be aware that that is part of the gameplay and that will be shown in this video. And I just wanted to again remind you guys before we jumped in. In this indie game with a doozy of a name, the full title is The Missing, J.J. Macfield and the Island of Memories, JJ and her presumably romantic interest of some sort, Emily, go on a camping trip. But this trip goes awry that evening when Emily ends up being chased by a demon of sorts and ends up missing. You must traverse this island of memories to try and find her and rescue her before it's too late. This island has horrible tricks up its sleeve though, and as soon as you begin JJ's journey, she meets an unfortunate end with a lightning strike. Or does she? Through a very, very surreal set of circumstances, JJ is revived with a power to help her on her journey. The power of not really being able to die. The idea of death and regeneration is very important to the story, as are topics of depression, self-harm, identity, sexuality, and familial relationships. This is not a story for the faint of heart or stomach. Be prepared for some gruesome death scenes as well as heavy conversation points. But again, this idea of regeneration becomes an integral part of the gameplay in addition to helping drive the story, which is also drip-fed to you through text messages and phone conversations to add context. And ultimately, even though this game goes to dark places, the message is one of hope. At the very, very start, there is a quote from the developers that says, "This game was made with the belief that nobody is wrong for being what they are." And that does come across. At a glance, The Missing is a 2D side-scrolling puzzle platformer, much in the vein of other 2D side-scrolling puzzle platformers. You'll traverse through various areas of the island, each with its own sense of character and almost 50s Americana feel, solving environmental puzzles to move forward, with that small twist. In The Missing, putting JJ in harm's way is often part of progressing. So remember that ability I mentioned earlier, the one where you can't really die? Well, rather than using solely the environment to solve puzzles, like throwing stones to weigh down a bucket, for example, you may find yourself using JJ's chopped body parts to knock down a lamp, or perhaps stop up some gears. While very hard to watch, and it never really got easier for me, it was impactful. Even though it's very, very difficult to maim JJ enough to cause the game to force a level restart, even though some areas are impossible to get through without harming JJ, and even though I know JJ can heal immediately after, something about this game made me want to do everything I could to protect her and avoid her getting hurt. The puzzles were well done, introducing new techniques gradually throughout, so you never feel like you're doing the exact same thing all the time. With some of the puzzles, there are bodies to be dragged, changes in gravity to negotiate, and more. Your body also feels like it carries weight and can be awkward to move, like getting up or down from a crouch or a belly crawl, but it fits the narrative of the story, and with the rest of the platforming feeling so smooth, I feel like this slight feeling of cumbersome and weight was intentional. Sometimes moving all the pieces together in a puzzle could feel a little slow because of the length of some areas, especially if you can't heal because you're carrying a body part to toss. You have to drag a broken leg too, but generally, the puzzles were well done, fairly quick to figure out and engaging. While the game does save fairly frequently between each puzzle section, there were a couple of places I felt like there were longer stints between checkpoints, combined with slightly confusing or obtuse solutions, but for the most part, progression and pacing felt good. The visuals and music are both solid, with some stunning landscapes and effectively done screams and squelches and sound effects in particular. I did wish the voice acting was a bit more well-rounded. While it was okay for the most part, there were some sections, particularly during more serious conversations, where the voiceover distracted me a bit from the content being discussed. There are fun additional collectibles in the game. I enjoyed that collecting donuts allowed us access to additional concept art and context for the story when you click on those little donut statue kiosks to deposit them. Why donuts, you may ask? Well, why not donuts? As a fan of the sugary baked good, I loved that small bit of personality. And these details add a bit of replayability if you are a fan of collecting things and 100% in games. Overall, I would recommend The Missing, but be prepared for it to go to a really dark place. Even as someone who feels readily able to grapple with the content, there were elements that I played where I had a bit of a hard time. I appreciate that it grapples with complex topics that many games don't address, and those that do don't always do so in the most effective or respectful manner. Again, I could empathize with certain aspects of the story, and while I feel that for the most part it did do a good job of telling JJ's tale while keeping the gameplay fresh and exciting, I would be curious to hear from people who have more personal relationships with this narrative to let me know what they think, as it does move beyond my personal realm of experience. Ultimately, again, as I said earlier, the heartfelt message that the game begins with, that this game was made with the belief that nobody is wrong for being what they are, comes across loud and clear. Thanks for watching this Indiescovery. I hope that you enjoyed it. And again, if you have played The Missing, I would love to know what you thought, particularly of the narrative, and especially if you have some experience with this narrative personally. And if you enjoyed this video, hit that like button or even consider subscribing. I cover all sorts of indie game news, releases, and reviews, and occasionally throw in a freestyle video, sometimes two video game music, just because why not? It's something I love to do and I want to share it with you guys. And be sure to follow me on twitch.tv/Kimchica, where I play indie games in real time. I stream Monday through Thursdays at about 1 p.m. Pacific time, give or take a little bit. If you follow me on Twitter at Kimchica25, you'll be able to see the schedule, and I always post when I go live, or do my best to post when I go live. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope you're finding lots of indie games to play, and I will see you in the next video.